be a busy day. So, the first thing we wanted to cover is the Kroger, Albertsons merger and the antitrust trial that's going on, because we covered that last week. Um, and last week we'd sort of talked about how, it was hard to tell, but it seemed like their employees might have been a little underpaid. And their argument in court was going to be, well, us having basically a monopoly on groceries on the West Coast is a good thing because it'll raise wages and it'll raise or lower the cost of groceries. That was kind of their argument. Well, in court, it kind of came out the other way. So I just want to jump in with this. So this article already, just the title, Deleted Text, Grocery Prices, CEO Testifies in Kroger-Albertsons Merger Case. So they had a bunch of issues where they were missing text regarding what was happening with the merger. So in the highest profile testimony over Kroger's proposed $25 billion takeover of Albertsons, the CEOs of both companies defended the merger's merits and hinted at dire consequences if it was not approved. Of course they did. So Kroger CEO Rodney McMullen warned supermarkets are surrounded by non-traditional rivals selling food. Albertsons CEO Vivek Sankaran hinted his plan B could mean layoffs, store closures, and retreating from geographic markets. So basically what their argument is, because that wasn't, I mean, there's all this, okay, you're missing all these texts, and why are you missing all these things? And the judge said, well, we can't really say it was nefarious that they happened to delete all these texts during the merger. Right? Well, you can't really say that. I mean, not like they're technically required to keep them, right? So, but it still looks bad, right? The judge could still take that into consideration. But their big argument was, well, no, it'll actually make us more competitive and it'll make us lower prices and raise wages. That didn't quite seem to fly.
On what planet?
Yeah, no, I know. That
on what planet?
Right. We'll get into a second why that didn't seem to fly. This is them now downshifting. They downshifted then into, well, look, here's the deal. If we can't do this, then it's going to be difficult for us to make money. We're going to have to start retreating from areas where it's hard to make money, because Amazon and Walmart are going to dominate because they have the online option better than we do. So if that's the case, that's what's going to happen. It's going to create what are called food deserts, places where there isn't a grocery store for 20 miles, which is really devastating, right? Mm-hmm. Now, this has happened a lot. This happens a lot in like really red rural areas, like Republican areas. And it's funny to me because every time it happens there, you know what they do? The county or the local city or municipality sets up their own grocery store, nonprofit grocery store. And people work there and it pays better wages and it's nonprofit, so it doesn't have to make any money. It just has to break even. So food prices tend to be cheaper. And so people love these, even though they're basically socialist grocery stores in very, very Republican areas.
Well, people might not know that that's what they are, because I've never heard of this, and I come from an area like that. I'm not aware of any of the grocery stores that we had there as being that type of grocery store. But no. I don't know if people would know.
Right.
Would you have a reason to know, the average person? I'm not sure I would. I don't go looking for the corporate structure of my grocery store before I walk in it.
No, but it would have like some weird generic name. But a lot of these they're not in places like where you would have grown up. I mean, they mostly like in Alabama, Florida, in some places like where it's really, really poor. Anyway, that's not kind of beside the point here. The point being is their whole deal was is if you don't give this to us, we'll have to create food deserts. So it's kind of a semi-threat kind of warning kind of thing, however you want to spin it. But it still came back to that whole point. Well, then it got into this. So while the Kroger CEO is testifying, he had to admit that they were price gouging, especially on milk and eggs, because there were emails where he specifically instructed his executives to price gouge on milk and eggs. So he specifically told them to price gouge. As a top Kroger executive admits to inflating milk and egg prices above the rate of inflation, the revelations raised broader concerns about corporate price gouging, reduced competition, and the impact of consumers during the pandemic and beyond. During a Federal Trade Commission's antitrust trial this week, the senior Kroger executive made a startling admission. The grocery giant had raised prices on essential items like milk and eggs beyond what inflation alone would justify. This admission, made under questioning from an FTC attorney, of course it was, has cast a harsh light on Kroger's pricing practices and has broader implications for corporate behavior in the grocery sector, particularly as the company seeks to merge with its primary competitor, Albertsons. And what's their key argument for why we need to merge? We need to merge so we can be more profitable, but we'll also lower prices at the same time. How can we trust you to do that? Well, we're not going to price gouge like we did during COVID.
Right. You know what? I don't know how well they did in their English class, because if I was their English teacher, I would tell them that they did not pick the best evidence
No,
to support their claim.
not at all. It's terrible.
Boo. Boo.
So they're showing that it's like, okay, but part of the argument, and this is what we talked about last week, part of their argument is we need to be competitive with Walmart and Amazon. Walmart and Amazon, who are notorious for price gouging, underpaying employees, abusing their workers, right? I mean, to be competitive with them, you kind of have to be like them. So you can't sit there and say, well, we want to be like them, but we're not going to do it like them. You know, I want to be a professional basketball player like Michael Jordan, but I'm never going to shoot or dunk the ball, I promise. I mean, it's just not reasonable. But this other thing came up too, and I thought this was interesting. There were a few of these that came up, different articles and studies. Here was one from 2022, and basically Kroger workers experienced hunger, homelessness, and couldn't pay their rent in 2021. Now, part of that might have been a factor of the pandemic, but it doesn't gird the fact that its CEO made $22 million in 2021, or 2020, whatever year it was. The other thing about that is his pay since 2022 has gone up, and it's like it's gone up like 20%. It's over like 25 million now. So he's making a ton of money. So what they found was 14% of Kroger workers, out of this survey of 10,000 unionized workers they interviewed, 14% of the Kroger workers faced homelessness in that year, according to a survey. More than 3/4 of the company's workers are also food insecure, so they can't get food all the time. 3/4, 75% of their grocery store workers can't get food. Water everywhere, man. You're working at a grocery store and you can't get food. Real wages for Kroger workers have decreased in the past few years, while executive profits have increased. That's a fact. So, once again, the CEO, Roger McMullen, got a lot richer later. While most of his company workers face homelessness, eviction, and hunger, when they went through this whole thing, they found, a survey by nonprofit Economic Roundtable found that more than 1/3, 36% of 10,000 employees at Kroger-owned stores in Southern California, Colorado, and Washington, so this is relevant to this case, said they were worried about eviction. That's 36. That's 1 in 3. More than 3/4, 78% are food insecure, and 1 in 7 Kroger workers faced homelessness in the past year. And part of how that works is this: is we kind of factored we guessed their average pay was probably around $37,000 a year for a full-time employee, which is really, it's low. It's barely enough to survive. Just barely.
But a lot of those jobs are not full-time.
That's the problem. And the other problem is because it's a grocery store and they want to, there's different seasons. People shop at different times in different parts of the year. So they want people to have flexible part-time schedules. So you could be working different shifts at different times, which makes it almost impossible to get a second job, because you don't have a regular shift. So
right.
It really screws these people. And since they don't want to pay or hire full-time employees, because then you have to give them full benefits, which costs even more money to the company. So the company just wants to rotate these part-time people, and they don't care that much about turnover, because they're saving so much in the interim that it doesn't really matter to them. So this idea that we're going to raise wages and lower prices is undercut by the fact that you've been lowering wages for the last several years, and you've been raising prices and price gouging whenever you get the opportunity.
And somehow magically they're just supposed to be believed when they say, "Oh, but we'll lower prices."
Oh yeah, we'll lower it. Well, you can trust us. Well, I mean, now you couldn't trust us before, but now you can. Maybe I was lying to you before, but now I'm telling the truth. So,
Is that what Trump tells the people in his life?
I'm sure that's what he tells them. I'm sure he says, "No, I was never lying. That was all in your imagination." He gaslights him. But no, so that's
right.
that's what's going on. This will be interesting. We'll let you know how it pans out. I think there's another week or two left in that trial, but it's basically a test trial. This is not the full trial. This is just to get an injunction to stop the merger for now until they can take it to court in D.C. But it's sort of a test run of, is our antitrust laws really going to kick in, or are we going to let these companies basically become monopolies? So we'll see how it plays out. I don't see how if Kroger wins, this is a good thing for the consumers or the employees. I mean, there's really nothing to support that. So,
Well, aren't you guys still boycotting Fred Meyer over there, which is one of the Kroger grocery stores? I think a lot of the West Coast is still boycotting them, even though the strike is technically done, right?
yeah, the strike is technically over, but yeah, there's still a boycott going on. I don't know how big it is because they're one of the largest chains on the West Coast. So, there's not a lot of other places you can go anyway. Unless you live
Right.
you live in a nice area like I do, where it's like, okay, I'll just go to Safeway.
Right.
Right? But I do think Safeway is a sister company there, so it's not like you're really going anywhere that they don't have their finger in. They aren't like mom and pop grocery stores anymore. So,
Well, I gotta tell you, I hope Trader Joe's sees a surge from it and everyone's like, to heck with all of these guys, and goes over there.
I like the farmer's market. I can get it right from the farm. I don't need to forget the middleman.
There you go.
You get better first pick. It's cheaper.